It's now time for the Billy C. Show, part of the BillyCBoxing.com network.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C. Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C. Show. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you're watching, whenever you're listening. I hope you're doing okay today. Today's show is being brought to us in part by Sal's Neighborhood Pizzeria and Italian Restaurant located on St. Simon's Island in Georgia. Check out the website, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com, or give my man a call, 912-268-2328, 912-268-2328. Find out why I go all the way to St. Simon's for an authentic Italian meal. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold, and you can get a copy of this book right now while you're watching or listening to this very show. Just visit BarnesandNoble.com or Amazon.com. .com, not .dop. Come on, Billy C. Find out why I'm so adamant about getting Tom Molyneux's story told. And if you're looking to get a signed copy, just visit our website, www.BillyCBoxing.com, and click on the book. You can't miss it. It's right there, and just follow the directions. Now, if you're looking to get multiple copies signed, you don't have to worry about that either, because all you got to do is drop me an email, billy@talkinboxing. That's TALKINBOXING.com. All right. Before we get started, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. Callum Smith winning the Super Series for the, well, actually, let me rephrase that, the World Boxing Super Series for the Super Middleweight Division. We got an update with HBO. Or a downgate, however you want to look at it. Victor Ortiz is in trouble. Big female fight scheduled. Billy Joe Saunders in trouble. Deontay Wilder against Tyson Fury. Does anyone really know what they're making? We'll talk about that. Also, coming up a little bit later, Stevenson, Adonis Stevenson, the biggest quack ducker there is in boxing, finally forced to fight a real fight. We'll talk about that. But first, with all condolences and sympathy goes out to the family and friends of Boxing Hall of Fame and one of the best promoters of all time, really. Don Chargin passed away at 90 years old the other day, so we wanted to give our thoughts, prayers, and condolences towards him. He was 90. His nickname was Don War a Week. Chargin used to promote and do all the matchmaking for a lot of fights out west, and boxing lost a staple in the industry. Getting his thoughts right now, joining me is my man Sal Rocky Cenicola. Don Chargin, quite the character for the sport, don't you think?
Oh, yes. He was so big, and so bigger than life, I should say. Good morning, Billy C. How are you today, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing okay. Good.
Yeah, Don, I remember growing up and listening and hearing about Don Chargin out of the West Coast and California area. And, this guy was a big promoter. As I suggested earlier, bigger than life, came on the scene and was a constant. And he worked diligently. He brought some beautiful, fantastic big fights to the fans. And, he left a legacy. I mean, the guy was one of a kind.
Yeah, there's no question about that. And boxing lost one of its own for sure. But let's jump into I hate having to go from something depressing to back to the news. And the news is Callum Smith improved to 25-0 with 18 of his wins coming by knockout. He picked up his 18th knockout, stopping George Groves in the 7th round. Not only did he take George Groves' WBA Super Middleweight title, but he becomes the crowned super middleweight champion of the World Boxing Super Series, picked up the Muhammad Ali trophy. I thought the fight was extremely entertaining. But Sal, and I know I cut you off before we went on air, but Sal, I thought that George Groves was a beaten man before the first bell sounded. I mean, this guy just was fighting like he was scared. He just was not the same. He was waiting for the punch. I had heard the commentators mention that at the weigh-in, they were, interviewing both fighters, and they had asked Callum Smith what he thought, and he says, well, I give George Groves a lot of credit, but when I looked at his eyes, I saw an old man ready to pass the torch. And I tell you what, it couldn't have been a better descriptor, because that's what I saw. I kept waiting for Groves to attack, like maybe thinking he was going to tire Smith out or what have you. But he didn't. He was fighting like he was embracing himself to get hit, and he certainly did. He took some shots. I don't know what to think. Did we see this guy age before us, and is it over for him?
Well, it's so funny because, when you have that little stare down moment in the ring, that's why some fighters refuse to even look you in the eye. You have a sense. You do have a split second of a sense like, yeah, this is mine. I see it. I see it. And, for Smith to say that he saw that sign of defeat in Groves' eyes, or the aging process that's going to unfold and become a reality, I mean, that's really saying something right there. First of all, it gives Smith a lot of confidence when that bell rings. But two, I saw Groves go out there, and he took the fight to Smith. I mean, the first two rounds were kind of boring, but I gave the first two rounds to Groves because he was active with the jab. He was forcing fight, but he was fighting scared. He had the feints in there. He looked like he was looking for a good shot to land, but he was active. He was busier, but I could also sense there was an impending doom upon him, with Smith just biding his time, classic style, elbows in, hands up, just looking to unleash a heavy shot. And there were signs of that. And then it unfolded during the fight. But at the end of 3 rounds, I had a 29-28, George Groves. And the 6th round, I had a 58-57, George Groves. And then we didn't have to see the end of the 7th round because it was all
over. Did you think that Groves was what was his game plan? I mean, did you think he was just a beaten guy?
I honestly think that he, in his heart of hearts, he felt this was going to be either an all or nothing night for him. And so that's why I saw him go out there. He had to be the aggressive fighter. He had to remain busy because he was going to try to dazzle him and be busier and try to win the rounds. I think he even sensed that, he's just got to be careful not to get caught. And I'll tell you what, when he threw that right hand at Smith, and that that hand came down afterwards, the recoil, and let me tell you what, Smith came over with a perfect left hook and didn't hit him on the chin. Didn't even hit Groves on the chin, hit him on the temple and the top of the head. And that just snapped his neck, and all things were happening from then on. He came back with a great finishing skills. I mean, the guy jumped on him, and he was landing fantastic shots. And the one that really put an icing on the cake for him was he hit him with a great shot to the body. And, you could be taking a beating in the head, but, man, you get hit in the body, all the life gets taken out right out of you. And that's exactly what happened. It was a great display, great finish by Callum Smith, and he deserves the praises today.
Yeah, there's no question. It seemed like it was a classic youth versus age fight, and I got news for you. I was shocked that George Groves was like that. Now, let me ask you this, and this is right up your alley, so to speak. He had a shoulder injury. He injured his shoulder in the last round of the last fight. It actually prolonged this delayed the Super Series final. Do you think that was a cause of it? I mean, because kind of to me, he seemed like he didn't want to throw punches. Did he not heal correctly? Did you think of anything?
He seemed tentative at times. And let me tell you about it. I fought with shoulder injuries many times. When I was younger, in my amateur career, my shoulder that actually saved my life, kept me from the plane that went down in Poland with the USA boxing team. But as we know, my last fight, just 5 years ago, going in about a week before, I completely tore my rotator cuff. And I had to change my game plan. I couldn't throw an overhand right. I couldn't throw a right hook. I had to work myself in there to deliver a straight, short, sharp uppercut or a straight, short, sharp right behind the other punches. And that got me the victory. That was fine. And it came together. So, yes, I had to change my game plan. And George Groves, the same thing. If his shoulder still was not 100% and he felt that he had to compensate, I'm sure he was kind of cautious on letting his hands fly. And if he did so, the arms or the right or left, he'd have to throw in a certain position, a certain way. So he could have been a little bit conscientious of that, a little tight in the head, and not letting those hands fly the way I thought that he was capable of doing. But in a sense, he compensated by trying to keep busier. He thought he was going to be able to steal the show and steal the fight, which in the early rounds he was able to just be busier, and that's what won him some of those early rounds. But as I suggested earlier, there was still a sense of an impending doom upon him when Callum Smith would land any heavy shot or any big shot. So it was just a matter of time, unfortunately. But yes, I think I think that George Groves may have compensated to protect the shoulder that was already hurt.
Just some other news I wanted to talk about. We're going to have Dax come on here in about 15 minutes. We're going to kick Sal to the curb, then we'll have him back. And some other boxing news. Former WBA champ Lucas Brown was handed a cupcake, a large one, but a cupcake that he took care of. Stopped Julius Long in the third round to keep his comeback going. And speaking of knockouts, HBO gets knocked out of boxing, announced last week that they will no longer be broadcasting boxing. We kind of saw the writing on the wall. Their last broadcast will be the one taking place October 27th. Daniel Jacobs will be taking on Sergey Deverenchenko, and Alberto Machado taking on Wandale Evans in the co-main event. Their reasoning was they feel that there were too many other opportunities for boxing fans to watch boxing, and they just weren't able to produce the quality programming that we've been accustomed to. In other words, they couldn't land the big fights for what they were offering, and they decided to walk away. We've talked about that a lot on this show, Sal, that they were slipping. They were losing the battle to Showtime, and they fell apart. It seems to me, I agree with a comment that Larry Merchant made, and I couldn't agree with him more, even though I'm not a big fan of Larry Merchant. Larry Merchant said, and I quote, "Once upon a time, we were a promising kid. Then we became a challenger, then a champion, then a great champion, and then a longtime champion. And then we finally retired." His analogy with HBO. And I will add that they didn't retire without getting beat up by a young gun coming up in Showtime, even though Showtime's been around, but Showtime put the pedal to the metal. I do think the analogy was correct, though, Sal. HBO, in the business for a long time, ultimately suffering a knockout at the hands of Showtime. What's your thoughts at HBO being no mo?
Well, it is kind of shocking. And I'll tell you what, Billy, you've been calling this for 2 years now. You've said this on and off the air to me that you feel there's, like I was saying about the Callum Smith Groves fight, there was an impending doom lying ahead for HBO. And I wasn't really sure about that. We were trying to make excuses for them. Maybe they're saving their money for the war wagon to pull on the trigger on a real big fight. We thought that. But Larry Merchant said it perfectly. He's always eloquent. He's always pictorial, and he's always making a poetic sense of description, which he did there as well. Exactly, but I think it's clear to say black and white that HBO got knocked out by Showtime. We saw them slip. We saw the staff change a little bit here and there. I loved HBO. I still do, and I wish they were still a part of being a player in the field. But Showtime has worked hard. They've earned it. They have their own good crew and capable crew at hand. And like we said, passing of the torch or change of the times, it happened. But never in my life did I think we'd see HBO not come out for the next round.
Good analogy, and I'm a little surprised myself. It just seemed like they couldn't compete. They quit. And
they stayed on the stool. They threw in the towel.
Exactly, they did. They quit on the stool. Little disappointing, but so be it. The only real negative thing I find is now I got to listen to Mario Ronaldo more.
Come on, Billy's not that bad.
He is that bad. He's the worst announcer in the sport of boxing. He thinks he's funny. I don't care that he's battling depression. I really don't. Not that I want to sound whatever, but I could care less about Mario Ronaldo. I think he's terrible for the sport. Terrible. I would rather listen to any other commentator other than him. I don't want somebody yelling and screaming at me while I'm trying to watch
a broadcast. Animated.
I don't want. Yeah, but he thinks he's funny. He comes up with all of this. He's a WWE guy. That's all he is. And boxing is becoming WWE, and it's sickening. It's sickening. Okay, it's not the way it used to be, and it's going in that direction with all of this hype. And the showdowns, and if they want to have a fight, you can bet your last dollar that the potential opponent sitting in the first row, and there's going to be some pushing and shoving after the fight. I mean, it's a joke. It's a joke. Anyway, talk about a joke. How about Victor Ortiz, ready to be the headliner in a fight this past weekend, and did not be able to fight? Why? Because he was arrested on rape charges. Unbelievable. Apparently. He turned himself in and got arrested on the 25th, which prevented his availability for the card that he was scheduled for this weekend. But according to the police report from Oxnard, the Oxnard police report, that back in March 19th, in the afternoon, according to the alleged victim, he raped her. And he was away, and he's gone. He did not fight, and I think that's terrible. It's just another, no pun intended, but black eye on the sport of boxing. What's your thoughts, Sal?
Well, I'm speechless. I guess I've been having my head in the sand a little bit the last couple of weeks, but I hadn't heard that, and I'm shocked. And whatever it takes now to find out the truth of the matter and to prosecute, that's got to be the path of this to unfold. And it's a shame, because when you're in the limelight, or you're in the sport, or you're doing anything, you got to live accordingly, and you got to watch yourself and keep yourself in check. That's accountability. And I have no sense of the story or no idea what happened, but I'm sure it's going to unfold, and we'll be able to talk about it down the road. But you know what? It's not a good thing. Not a good thing at all. And if it's the truth, he's going to pay the price, as he should.
Some other topics. I'm trying to run through a lot of the topics that we're going to talk a little more in depth on. But big fight set for November 17th in the female ranks. Clarissa Shields, who is the only two-time gold medal winner in boxing and female. She's taken on arguably the toughest opponent and the fellow world champion Christina Hammer. It's taking place on Showtime November 17th in Atlantic City, which is good. I've lost a lot of respect for Claressa Shields. I've gotten to meet her in person. She was very grounded at that time, and it was prior to her second gold medal. She's taken on a different persona, which I don't like. And although she's a quality fighter, I'm looking forward to this potential fight. I do see that Shields possesses the kryptonite for Christina Hammer. Christina Hammer is very European. She stands up straight. She delivers her punches with authority, but they don't come at you that quickly. I'm not so sure her defense is going to be good enough for Claressa Shields, but we'll see on November 17th. Sal, I know you don't follow female boxing too much, but do you have any thoughts on this one? Do you have any thoughts on this one?
Yes, I do, and I agree. And I think Claressa Shields is going to have too much firepower, and she's definitely a professional and a competent fighter, and I think she'll do what she has to do to win. And I've been definitely more of a fan and following female boxing as of late, and I definitely see it now as definitely a great option to coincide and be very compatible with the male boxing.
I don't know about that. I think you took it one step too far. There's got to be more quality fighters though coming up. There's not.
And that's the shame of it.
Right.
There's not too many quality fighters in some of the top rankings of the professional males, but the females it's not as saturated and not as competitive because there's not as many female fighters that are willing to step up and do what they got to do to be a champion.
Well, first of all, there are. Here's a sad thing.
Tell me.
I'm going to enlighten you right now. As far as female boxing, I agree. There's not enough quality female fighters, and I don't know if there'll ever be. And I hate to just sound like that, but I don't know if there'll ever be. I was never a big fan. No. They're not all good. There's a handful of good ones for sure.
Yeah.
I was never a big fan of Heather Hardy, but now I love her. She's more than just a fighter. She's an ambassador to the sport. Not that I think she's one of the better fighters, but I think she's good for the sport. Whereas Claressa Shields, I think she's talented, but not that good for the sport. Just some of the comments and mannerisms that she's developed. Christina Hammer, on the other hand, is good for the sport, but she's in Germany, so we don't get to see her as much as the German fans do. But I just want to go back to a comment you made. You see, this is where I disagree. I think that we do have a lot of talented male fighters out there. I think in the men's divisions we have a lot of talented male boxers, athletes that are bigger and stronger than they were 20, 30, 40 years ago and beyond, way bigger and stronger. Their nutritional training methods are better. They have steroids. Oh no, I shouldn't have said that. The way they work out is scientifically can work specific parts of their body and blah blah blah. So yes, I do think that the talent is there. Unfortunately, the mindset is not, Sal. The mindset is not the same. No. We've become a bunch of wimps. Nobody wants to fight anybody. Everybody wants to move their fighter along like a chess game. And although I understand it because I'm involved in the business deeply, I don't agree with it. We can't shake out a quality fight. For an example, Callum Smith and George Groves. How good was George Groves? George Groves was a champ for a while. They're calling him an old man. He's not even that old. I mean, the truth of the matter is how good are these fighters when they're never really tested? We don't know. I think Anthony Joshua is the best heavyweight in the world. He's fought some tough guys. Is he that good? Some people think Wilder is. He's fought nobody. He's got one thing, punching power. Is he that good? Can he beat these guys? I mean, it's a tough question, Sal.
It's a tough question, and of course, we're not going to have all the answers, and a lot of them are subject to our own opinions. And my statement about some of the male boxing, it's just that when we had the different earlier generations or eras of fighting, like I said, there were more promoters promoting the sport of boxing, and so you had these guys in your face and in the household discussions and water cooler discussions because they were bigger than life and they were thrown at you. They were promoted. It's not the same type of promotion behind these fighters today. So you don't know or don't hear about them. And I will tell you this, I agree. They may have the better, more up-to-date, contemporary resources for the athletes of today to be superior. But I think there is a deficit in some of the mindset, in some of the entitlement, in some of the, everybody has to have a burning desire. If they're in the ring or they're going to be special, they have to have that passion, that burning desire. And I'm not saying that everyone who tries to reach for greatness does not. But I think there's a little bit of a shortcut or a little bit of a, hey, I did the work today, maybe I don't have to do it tomorrow mindset. I mean, we had a while, and I hope I'm not saying anything out of line. I talked about this with one of the old greats who was in the restaurant a couple of weeks ago, Pat Ryan. There you go, Jets, New York quarterback, and he comes in once a year with his family. Great guy. And of course, we're going to talk about our generation when he was a warrior on the field, and we kind of looked at, like I just said, the resources are there, the opportunities for these athletes to be bigger, to be superior, to shoot more juice. No, I didn't say that. To do whatever they had to do to be competitive and win on the field. But is that burning desire? Are you willing to walk on the hot coals at night, sleep on a bed of nails during the day? And, that's the mentality and the mindset to do all, to live it, to face it, to die doing what you love. I mean, that's just the mentality and warrior kind of mindset we had early on. And I'm sure there are those individuals that still do, but it's not as across the board as it used to be.
We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, I'm scheduled to have Dax Kahn join us. We're kicking Sal to the curb so he can have another cup of coffee, and then we'll be back after that. So don't go anywhere, because we'll be back in 2.
Billy C will be right back.
Broken air conditioning, $4,400. Failing refrigerator, $2,500. Don't let outrageous repair and replacement bills like these bust your budget. Get the First American Home Warranty Plan. And when a covered appliance or system breaks, we'll repair it or replace it for you.
We had a high-end dishwasher go kaput. They put it in a brand new dishwasher.
We have plans that cover air conditioning, most appliances, plus heating, plumbing, electrical systems, and much more. Plans start as low as $25 a month. Why let a major appliance or system break down your budget? Or go through the hassle of finding trustworthy service people. Last year alone, we saved our customers over $120 million. Don't wait until something breaks and you're stuck with a huge bill.
We save a lot of money. It's absolutely worth it.
If you don't have First American Warranty, get it.
Call 1-800-946-6234 for your free no-obligation quote.
Need relief from backaches and stiffness in your hips or down your legs? Then you need Dr. Ho's Back Relief Belt, the innovative technology to support and decompress your spine. And now it's covered by Medicare.
Every patient with back pain should be wearing this belt.
Nothing gave me instant relief except for the Dr. Ho belt.
Feel good while standing, walking, driving, doing housework, and while laying down. And now Dr. Ho's patented belt is available at our best price ever. It's even covered by Medicare. Order now and get the easy-to-use hand pump and back rehabilitation DVD free.
Similar belts can cost you almost $1,000, but my belts won't cost you $500, not $300, not even $200. I will give you my special TV price.
And remember, Dr. Ho's belt is covered by Medicare.
If you know a friend or family member that suffers with pain, get them my system today. Help them live with less pain, be more active, and get back to doing the things they love. give them the gift of health.
Listen to this important message. If you owe money to the IRS, you will want to hear this. Penalties and interest compound daily on your back taxes, putting you under a mountain of debt. Tax 10,000 has years of experience connecting people with tax resolution specialists. Working through the IRS Fresh Start program, they will handle all the necessary forms, and if you qualify, you may end up saving thousands of dollars. Call Tax 10,000 at 800-773-4604.
Are you currently on Medicare? In other words, do you carry the red, white, and blue Medicare card? If so, are you suffering from chronic back pain? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a pain-relieving back brace covered by Medicare at little to no cost, shipped directly to your home for free. These medical-grade back braces are ideal for lower back pain, arthritis, spinal disorders, and other chronic back problems. Will you qualify for a medical-grade back brace?
Call Back Brace America at 1-800-290-8300.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts! Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us. I'm in the middle of responding to some chats in the chat room on our YouTube page. If you want to get your thoughts or comments live, part of the show, just drop us a super chat and I'll make it happen. Joining us right now is my man Dax Kahn. Good morning, Dax.
No, hold on a second. I'm trying to put in a super chat here.
Yeah, good. We need that. But
you're gonna give me that money back, right?
Yeah, right. But why? You never put anything in there. But anyway, first and foremost, I know you're big. I'm gonna jump the gun here because of some of the comments going on in the chat room. But the Clarissa Shields Christina Hammer fight that's scheduled in November is a great fight. It's putting two of the top female fighters against each other. I love the fight itself, and I love that those two particular female fighters are breaking the norm, which has become the norm. Let me just say this: several years back, when I was involved deeply in female boxing, the reason that it attracted me so much was because the females would fight each other whenever. They never held back. They didn't play the shenanigans that the men fighters were doing, and it was exciting to see and watch it develop. But then lo and behold, all of a sudden we get some talented female fighters and they start doing the same crap the guys do. They don't fight the right fights. They basically dodge each other. Now Clarissa and Christina Hammer are not. They are fighting each other. But what's your thoughts on this fight and the direction female boxing is going?
Well, this fight I like, of course, because it's actually, in terms of names, it's the biggest fight available in female boxing, considering the promoters behind them and the exposure, as you mentioned earlier, with Clarissa Shields and her gold medals. Everybody knows her story. There's been documentaries on her. Christina Hammer, on how wide known she is overseas, and of course she's been a long reigning champion in multiple sanctioning bodies. They're obviously the best super middleweights in the world right now. Both can box, both are very skilled. So it's a very appealing fight, and it's very good for the overall exposure, the overall, helping bring female boxing to another level. But, I'm going to be honest, you want to say you want to jump the gun, you want to change the gun. The better fight, actually, in my opinion, and a fight that's better for the sport and better for female boxing, is actually the Heather Hardy and Shelley Vincent rematch. And the reason why, Bill, let me say this, is, yes, no, neither one has a gold medal. But you know something? These two are exactly what boxing is lacking today, and boxing used to have years ago. And of course, you know how you said, you know, females will fight each other. You know, they do what they got to do. These are the old expression, you know, bring your lunch pail to work type fighters. You know, they both have outside obligations. Heather Hardy's a single mother. Shelly Vincent, you know, she's in a relationship. You know, she's also helping with her partner's daughter as a stepmother. You know, they both have similar backgrounds, yet they're such, you know, contrast opposites. And on top of that, you know, what you're saying, you know, in terms of how the once you get a name and you're building up, all of a sudden there's all these games going on, and which we have seen a few times in female boxing, and even, you know, with Claressa Shields and Christina Hammer with the antics. You know, when it comes to people like, you know, fighters like Heather Hardy and Shelly Vincent, or even Amanda Serrano, who recently, you know, made history by winning world titles in 6 different divisions. You know, these, you know, they've jumped over to MMA because they're still trying to not only make a name for themselves, but they're trying to make, you know, money for themselves to feed their family. So, you know, and they're out there and they're promoting themselves and they're interacting with fans. You know, the people that, you know, you can sit there and you can say, you know, this is the type of person that you walk out of your door and you wave to every day. And that's what boxing is lacking. And that's why fights like Heather Hardy and Shelly Vincent are great. You know, even better than the Claressa Shields and Christina Hammer fight, in my opinion. That's no insult to Claressa Shields or Christina Hammer, but we need more fights like Heather Hardy and Shelly Vincent, because, you know, it's fights like that which brought boxing to its pinnacle, and it's fights like that and fighters like that that will actually bring female boxing to the pinnacle, and maybe because of their willingness even surpass the way the men's fights are right now.
You know, it's funny. I'm just going to be honest and bring this right out, since we're off topic and mentioning Heather Hardy. You know more than anyone that I was not a big fan of Heather Hardy. I remember you and me going back and forth about it. You're like, oh, I saw Heather at the camp. Oh, you want to do this? You want to do an interview? And I was like, she doesn't do this. She doesn't do that. But I have come to love Heather Hardy, and for multiple reasons. One, she'll fight anybody, anywhere, anytime. I mean, there's no question about that. And she has gotten better. I thought that her rise to the top, you know, was not, she developed, okay, and I wasn't giving her enough time. But what I like about her even more is her antics outside the ring. She's definitely a blue-collar fighter. She works very hard at staying in shape. She battles the same things most of us battle on a daily basis. And, you know, it's hard not to support a fighter like that. And I'm with her. I love Heather Hardy, and she's a warrior. And no disrespect to, like you said, I agree, no disrespect to Claressa Shields or Christina Hammer, because they're both very talented fighters. But the one thing that Claressa Shields is beginning to lack is a diversified attitude. And what I mean by that is she's stuck in one rut all of a sudden, where she wasn't when I met her several years back. So it's the WWE aspect of what boxing is becoming, Dax, and it's a shame. But anyway, let's get to topic before we keep rambling on about this myself. Callum Smith knocked out George Groves to win the Super Middleweight tournament for the World Boxing Super Series. I loved the fight. Earlier, I don't know if you heard what I said, but I thought that Groves, a guy that I thought was going to fare much better, looked like he was waiting for the end to come. I don't know if I ever witnessed a fighter that went from his previous fight to a current fight in the period of time that George Groves did, despite the shoulder operation, that looked so old. I mean, this guy looked old from the opening bell. I thought he was trying to bait Smith in, but Smith won the fight, looked great. Is he that good?
Well, I thought George Groves was going to win the whole tournament, but, you know, as far as Callum Smith goes, I had always thought that, you know, he was a top-level fighter and that he just needed the opportunity to step up and show. You know, in my opinion, you know, overall, in short, You know, this is something huge in boxing. You know, this is bigger than just a fight, Bill, you know, because in this right here, you know, these two guys, or especially even George Groves, who was pretty much considered, you know, the cream of the crop of the division due to the fact that, you know, even his losses were only to Carl Froch and Badu Jack. Maybe anywhere else he would have gotten the nod against Badu Jack. In the Carl Froch fights, he was ahead on both scorecards before he was knocked out. And, you know, and he's also, you know, despite the fact that people say, you know, he looked like an old fighter, and maybe he did. You know, he's really not that old, but, you know, he's been in such so many wars. You know, he's such a proven warrior. And, you know, that's what makes it special, because George Groves didn't have to go in there and join this. Same thing with Callum Smith. He didn't have to go in there and join this World Boxing Super Series, especially in this era of that coveted O, where that O means everything, where that loss can sit there and just totally derail a prospect, derail somebody on the rise. That coveted O, where, you know, something, if you're a champion, that, you know, you're not going to sit there and fight the guys with the O's, because you can get the guys that are so much easier, you know. But both these guys stepped in there, and, you know, they did this because they wanted to prove themselves. They wanted to chase greatness, and that was special. You know, George Groves, he was on a 5-fight win streak, and over Chris Eubank Jr., Jamie Cox, Fedor Shudanov. When he entered the tournament, you know, Smith undefeated entering the tournament. You know, he was in with lesser names, but, you know, good fighters, Rocky Fielding, Luke Blackridge, you know, really, this was a very special fight. It was a very special tournament. It was something that we have not really seen in boxing that I can name in the past 20 years. Not even the Super 6, not, you know, not even the HBO tournament, you know, middleweight tournament, when we had Bernard Hopkins and we had Oscar De La Hoya and Felix Trinidad and so on. So, you know, in my opinion, George Groves and Callum Smith, they really did something in that ring besides just fight. They really set a bar inside the sport that I think we're going to see a lot more of. You know, hats off to Callum Smith. Exactly how good he's going to be, we don't really know. Exactly how shot George Groves is, or if George Groves is shot, we really don't know. But, you know, I don't think it's the end of George Groves' career, and I think Callum Smith has nothing but, you know, where to go but up. Personally, I would love to see Callum Smith against Jose Uzacatui in the next fight, and then the winner of that, you know, go after, you know, maybe Gilberto Ramirez, or, you know, one of those guys like that. But, you know, that division all of a sudden has become an important division, and mainly because of this World Boxing Super Series.
You know, it just looked to me like George Groves was waiting to get hit. I had asked Sal earlier on if, you know, a shoulder injury after surgery. I'm not so sure that Sal had the proper surgeries when he should have. That was one of the reasons that he, you know, was out of the ring. But Groves did have the surgery, and it just seemed like I don't know. It seemed like he wasn't able to throw the punches well. It looked like he wasn't as fluid as he usually is. Like you, I picked George Groves to win the not only this fight but the tournament. I thought he was a notch above everyone else in the tourney in the super middleweight division, but he certainly didn't look it last night. And I don't know how much is left in him, Dax. I mean, a guy like Groves, and no disrespect to Callum Smith, but you don't beat Callum Smith in a division that's on the rise. What do? You climb the ladder again? They were referring to him as old. I think he's only 30, right? I mean, he's maybe 31. I didn't think he was that old, but he certainly looked it. So I'm not sure, man. I'm not sure what to think. I left, you know, when the fight was over, I was very happy for Callum Smith. He put on a great performance. But my question in my mind was, what's next for Groves? Should he even continue? I saw a totally different guy in that ring. And if I'm Groves, I hang him up. I think, I hate to say this, but I think his career is over.
Well, maybe he might be 29, just getting ready to turn 30. If not, he's no more than 30. He just turned 30 this year. But, you know, George Groves, in terms of the old, remember, years ago, a fighter, when they were 30 years old, they were considered old. You know, unlike today, you know, where fighters can be 35, 40, even in the lower divisions. And a lot of times, why do we see that? Is because of the things we complain about all the time. They're not fighting the top names. They're not in there with the tough fights. When you're in there with the tough fights, you're in there with the best names that you're possibly available, and you're in there going against anybody you will, and that's going to take the wear and tear on your body, and that's why these guys age a lot quicker physically. You know, of course, you know, 30 years old is not old, 35 is not old, but at one point in time, that was considered, a senior citizen if you were inside the sport of boxing. And George Groves, throughout his career, he's been in there with a lot of the best guys and, a lot of tough fights. So, maybe George Groves just really is old. But again, take nothing away from Callum Smith, and George Groves had no excuses. He didn't complain whatsoever, and you have to applaud that as well because George Groves acted like a champion afterwards. So all in all, both guys are winners, and I'm just excited to see what's going to happen with Callum Smith next.
I agree with that. It seems like his popularity, at least here in the States, went up. A lot of people on this side of the pond knew who George Groves were, and because of all the Smith brothers, you lose track of who's who. But I'm with you. I'm looking forward to see where he goes from this point on. Another thing I wanted to get your thoughts on, HBO throwing in the towel. Sal made a great analogy, said they quit on their stool. I couldn't agree with him more. We all agree that HBO has been slipping, clearly losing the fight against Showtime. But to walk away the way they did and to announce their exit from the sport, if you will, being this year, it came as a surprise to me. And similar to what Larry Merchant said, I'll paraphrase because I want to use a different choice of words. They're just like a champion who finally got beat up and is looking terrible. Instead of retiring on the top like your boy Lennox Lewis did, and which very few fighters are allowed to do. Lennox Lewis retired as a champion on top, and that's the way we have to remember him. We can't remember a bad performance. Yeah, people can bring up a specific performance, but he came back and avenged those losses, and he walked away on top. HBO could have done something similar, Dax. They could have put on a couple of really good shows and then walk away. But instead, they were picking the leftovers, picking through the scrap heap of the fights, and it wasn't the same. We noticed it last year. We noticed it the beginning of the year before, and all of this year. What's your thoughts? HBO, no mo.
HBO as a network in general, I think we've all noticed, if you have it, that it's been slipping. HBO used to have these really great shows, whether or not it was Oz or it was a Deadwood or it was The Wire or so on and so forth, and they don't even have these quality shows anymore. HBO has always had this bad habit of outpricing themselves when they do things. I believe their series Rome, which was a mega hit, they had to actually cancel that and kind of cut that short and kind of skip to the end of the story because it was so much money to make each episode. And then, HBO, they, kind of found themselves going through a change. They kind of found themselves, in competition with a lot of other networks, a lot of other promoters, whether or not it was the PBC. And then all of a sudden, we had these streaming apps that came out. These streaming apps are going to hurt everybody, including Showtime. Make no mistake about that. Whether or not, you have the ESPN app, you have the DAZN app, you have the Fight app, which we're broadcast on. In my opinion, that's actually, the best app out there, for combat sports. And, this is going to be the future of it. And it's just cable in general. People are getting rid of their cable in their homes in general, and they're streaming. They're watching YouTube channels, stuff like that. They're watching, Amazon Fire Sticks. They're watching Sling TV and so on and so forth. So, I just think that, the budget was actually hurting HBO and changing the times, and they just didn't have the boxing minds behind them anymore. And their broadcast team was kind of faded out. They weren't as popular as they used to be. So, they kind of had, they had to throw the towel in the corner. Unfortunately, though, with HBO being gone, we're not even going to get how ESPN kind of does their classic fights. We may not see, the Buster Douglas and his big upset of Mike Tyson, George Foreman stopping Michael Moore to become the oldest champion in history, possibly the 3 most brutal rounds in history, Hagler versus Hearns. So much and so many to talk about. It's really a staple of the sport. It's not even just a staple of the sport. It's a culture, a staple of the culture, around the world because boxing is a global sport. And to see it just vanish that quickly and not even, just kind of fade out slowly and give it a little bit of notice. That's very disappointing. The last time I was disappointed to see something in boxing, a broadcast exit this quickly and so fast, is when Tuesday Night Fight stopped broadcasting.
Dax, the thing is that this is where, first of all, I agree with most everything you said, except the technical part of HBO. Keep in mind, HBO it's a paid-for service. So in other words, they have money that's coming in from subscribers, just like Showtime and some of the what they would call premium networks. So they have a budget to work with, unlike say the streaming services. But where they fell short is they are not moving and changing with the times, and Showtime is. You bring up the streaming. Now, streaming, I've been saying that I was against, a certain promoter doing a deal with the streaming service and being exclusive with them, and that's the only place you're going to be able to see those fighters fight. And at the end of the day, you're going to have to subscribe to all these streaming services in order to get all the fights, unless you just like one promoter and his or her fighters. Showtime is in the arena when it comes to streaming. They are streaming fights, undercards. They are setting themselves up to roll with the technology when everyone just goes 100% streaming. After all, it is the same. We don't have to draw that line anymore. And you and I have talked about this for years of where it's going to be in the future and what have you. HBO was a dinosaur. They were like the person that had the rotary telephone. Most of you young people don't even know what that is, but let's just rephrase it, Dax, for the younger crowd. A telephone that you used to actually have to plug in to use. Let's just leave it at that. That's like saying that you refuse to develop a phone that can work without being plugged in, a phone that would not be, a cordless phone. Saying, I'm not going to, it's like somebody saying, this internet thing, it's not going to catch on. That's what HBO is kind of done here. And to walk away like this, it can't be money because they have it. Unless people are just canceling their subscriptions, then maybe according to your thoughts, maybe HBO is just going to go away altogether. Is that what you're saying?
I'll be honest with you. HBO can be streamed just like Showtime as long as you have that package included in your cable package. You can get the app on your phone, and so long as you have it, included in your home service, you can watch it anywhere. But again, that's the problem. You see, these networks, these broadcast services, whether or not it's a Spectrum, whether or not it's a Verizon or whoever it might be, they make these packages happen. Actually, something, the way my package is set up, that if I got rid of HBO, it would actually cost me more money. I made sure that the package I chose, that I had Showtime and I had HBO included because of the boxing. This way I made sure that I had, the boxing on both those channels, and I didn't have to pay extra for one. But now if I wanted to say, I want to get rid of HBO, it will actually cost me $15 a month to get rid of HBO and only have one premium channel, Showtime, for the boxing, because that's the way the network has it set up. So that's what I mean by, it's not really so much HBO's fault. And I do agree, with the dinosaur, maybe, they had a lot of things changing at the times, but, it's not all their fault. And, when it comes to where the money comes, where they're getting their revenue, these cable services are actually hurting them. And that's why, again, I stress, we see so many people, just having internet and just streaming channels into their home, and they're not even watching the regular prime time. Remember, there was a time where you didn't even need an antenna to get your basic channels, 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, whatever the case may be. You can't even do that anymore.
Dax, one last question I got for you. Have you? I know you're up on a lot of stuff, and I'll admit I have not heard one thing about this. My question is, have you heard anything about the purse split for the scheduled Deontay Wilder against Tyson Fury? I have not. Have you?
No, I haven't. I've heard numbers, thrown around, but I haven't heard anything.
What have you heard? What kind of numbers have you heard thrown around? I haven't even heard that.
I mean, rumors. I've heard rumors. I heard, $3 million for Wilder, and I heard, $2.5 for Tyson Fury, and of course, on the other side note is Anthony Joshua across the pond, and that's the big prize over there. The Joshua Wilder fight. The Joshua Wilder fight should have been this easy to make. So, this is a good fight, and I actually have to believe that, whoever wins this is going to be the top guy in the division. I don't care if Anthony Joshua holds the lion's shares of the belts. Tyson Fury, despite coming back and not having any quality opponents, having that long layoff, he never lost his titles in the ring. He never lost his lineal title. So, Deontay Wilder, happens to defeat him, especially in spectacular fashion. Deontay Wilder has to be the man, because that lineal title is what mattered more than those belts. I don't even care if they're unified, because Anthony Joshua, that IBF title that he started out with was Tyson Fury's, and the reason why they took that from Tyson Fury is because the IBF, as ungrateful as they are, didn't want Tyson Fury to give the guy who held that title for almost a decade a rematch.
Yeah, well, that whole Klitschko thing was out of hand, and I think financially Tyson Fury regrets that move. But in any event, Dax, I appreciate your insight. And
there's one more thing, I just want to address, and we can address with Sal, see if we can address with Alex. Just recently. Matter of fact, yesterday, there's been talk about it for a while, but yesterday, it came out. A Springfield boxing coach, was arrested. He was charged with rape. Robert Hershey, 41 years old, who ran the Beast Elite boxing gym in Springfield, Massachusetts. A lot of people know him from the amateur circuit. I don't understand how this happens, Bill. I don't understand where, USA Boxing is not upping their guidelines, why they're not sitting there and they're doing background checks. And, all of a sudden, there are so many claims where, he wasn't even a member of USA Boxing, that he was just threw this sign up inside his gym. He had to sign up and they're recruiting 8 to 15-year-olds, tryouts taking place, no experience necessary, no payment, just, with a phone number beneath it. This guy had social media accounts where he was saying that he was a member of the local Sheriff's Department, and the Sheriff's Department found this out recently, and they just said no, he was never a member of the Sheriff's Department. So how is this? I don't understand. How this goes on. We're seeing this way too much in the amateur boxing circuit. It's way too easy to get a USA Boxing coach card. It's an open book test. It's usually a group of people that sit there. They don't allow anybody to fail. They don't care if anybody knows anything about boxing. I've been to a lot of these meetings. I've never seen anybody have to demonstrate what they actually knew how to teach a kid inside the ring. We don't know, what these people working with the kids, their qualifications are, if they're able to be role models around these kids, whether or not, and again, it's just an accusation at this point in time, but the fact that this is going on like this, you had a guy that was lying, a guy that was, presenting himself as an employee to the Sheriff's Department, a guy that was presenting himself as a member of USA Boxing when, not even verified. This is just unacceptable. I don't understand this. And, this is what's not only hurting the sport, but, we're actually seeing this and we're hurting the kids in the country because, a lot of kids turn to the sport. They turn to boxing because, they're looking for that confidence, whether or not they're being bullied, whether or not they just want to learn something, whether or not they want to get in shape. And we have too many of these guys that, watch these videos on YouTube and they want to open up a gym, and they're hurting these kids. They're not helping these kids. Everybody out there, all of a sudden they think, they're the next Mickey Goldmill and they're going to find the next Rocky Balboa and they're going to, reach some sort of prominence, and that's not how it's supposed to be. When you're a boxing coach, or whether or not you're a football coach, or whether or not you're a little league coach, your job, when you decide to take that up, you don't sit, you're not offered that position. You decide to take that up, and that is not something you do from the time the kid walks into the gym to the time they leave. These kids look up to you. You're helping mold an adult. You're helping mold, the future. You're sitting there and you're taking this upon yourself to say, I want to sit there and help these kids. A lot of these kids have no male role models. A lot of these kids have no parents in general. And when they step inside that gym, you know what? You are the only role model that they have. And, these kids are sitting there and they're being failed by these people. And why are not, the mayors, the town boards, the school systems, and so on doing anything about this? Why aren't they helping, check this out like we used to have the PAL leagues? I don't understand this. It kind of disgusts me. And then, the guys that you have out there that are really great guys that are really trying hard, like a Leonard Lee from Newburgh Hook Elite, who sacrifices everything. He gets no support. We have great people like Sonia Lamanakis. You have people like, Heather Hardy.
Dax, I appreciate that. I'm pressed. I got to take a break right now. Your point is well taken. And you guys can look on the website, www.billycboxing.com, and I'm sure Dax can put together an article on this. But support Dax 100%. We got to take a break. We will be back in 2.
Billy C will be right back.
Osteoarthritis in one or both knees? If you have osteoarthritis in one or both knees, are you on Medicare, Obamacare, or other health insurance? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a prescription strength solution for osteoarthritis of the knees, covered by Medicare at little to absolutely no cost to you. We also offer a prescription strength topical pain relief ointment that can be used for pain experienced on other areas of your body. Our experienced staff will work with your doctor and handle all of your Medicare or insurance paperwork. Best of all, your prescription is shipped directly to your home for free. Will you qualify for a prescription strength solution for osteoarthritis of the knee or for a topical pain pain relief ointment covered by Medicare or private insurance at little or no cost to you?
Find out for free by calling the Back and Knee Pain Center at 1-800-604-1072. That's 1-800-604-1072, 1-800-604-1072.
Medical alarms for people who fall or have medical emergencies. You never think you'll need one until you do. Hi, I'm Lonnie Anderson for Advantage Alert. Today, our advanced systems locate and protect people inside and outside their homes, plus when they're on the road, allowing users with the press of a button to speak with an operator who can summon help. And even after 30 years, Advantage Alert's products remain amazingly affordable.
Call 800-985-1705.
Addiction is an epidemic in America. If you or someone you love is struggling with addiction, you need to call the R360 Network now.
I'm Ken Seeley, author, addiction recovery specialist, and former addict. R360 is a nationwide network of addiction recovery specialists that I personally selected and recommend.
The call is free, the consultation is free. If you have private insurance, your treatment could be covered with no out-of-pocket cost.
Call 800-705-0023.
Addiction.
Are you currently on Medicare? In other words, do you carry the red, white, and blue Medicare card? If so, are you suffering from chronic back pain? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a pain-relieving back brace covered by Medicare at little to no cost, shipped directly to your home for free. These medical-grade back braces are ideal for lower back pain, arthritis, spinal disorders, and other chronic back problems. Will you qualify for a medical-grade back brace?
Call Back Brace America at 1-800-290-8300.
Now back to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C., the only radio host man enough to take a punch from Mike Tyson.
Wait a minute, man. Hold on there. Jeremy, man, I need you to take this one, all right?
Wait, what? No way. I can't do this.
Need I remind you I'm Billy C., damn it? Now put on that mustache and get in there.
Hey, look at me. I'm Billy C. Crap. The undisputed heavyweight champion of Boxing Talk Radio. It's Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us. Give a shout out to all of our radio affiliates, especially the one down south that my man Sal is close to, WGIG. I want to give a shout out to my man Scott and all of his people for airing us as much as you do, as well as my fellow Jet fan in New England, my man George from WSMN. Just to name a couple of affiliates that we have, and of course all the TV affiliates. We're glad to be part of all of your sports programming. We have Sal Rocky Cenicola back with us, and Sal, you know, I had to cut Dax off a little prematurely, but we were talking about several things, and you know, one of them was about HBO. And, you know, I've said for a long time that, you know, we do have to roll with the changes of technology, but it just seems that HBO wasn't willing to do it. And I'm not suggesting you weren't able to see them on other platforms, but I'm a little disappointed in the way they just walked away from the sport.
Well, you know, it's something. And when they arrive at a decision, company like a corporation like HBO. I hate to make this analogy, but almost like a company like Nike. When they did their latest endorsement, whether you are for it or not, of Kaepernick. Now, of course, here in the United States, there was a lot of backlash. There was a lot of things going on. But Nike, to make that decision, they were looking at their perspective through the world prism. They were looking worldwide market. They were looking bigger, and they seem to have rolled that dice, and it looks like it's going to pay them back some dividends. Now, HBO, the same thing. They look at a world prism. They look at their whole management. They look at everything that's going on in their forecast and where they're going and what they want to do to change the ship. Now, they may have looked at that whole marketplace and they said, hey, this is our weakest link. We got to do this, and we can maximize our efforts over time in these other areas. Not saying that's what they did, but that's how sometimes these decisions are arrived at. Now, I do agree with you, Bill, 100%. I guess I would have liked a slower, longer goodbye period than just cut and dry. It would have been nice to say, hey, we're wrapping up, we're doing something different, you'll be able to pick us up. It would have been nice to have a little bit of a send-off with maybe a couple good shows left. But for whatever reason, like I said, they look at things through a different prism. The company, win-loss, profit, and everything else, what's going to happen, and on a world stage. So who knows why they arrived at this decision. Yes, us as the fans, and as long as they've been around, we would have liked or preferred a better departure than just closing the window forever. And you know what? Forever is not forever. We don't know what the heck they may be doing. Maybe they're going to go through a little low time, lick their wounds, have a resurgence, do some marketing, and say, hey, we're back bigger, better than ever. So that's just it. We don't know. But when they look at these things, they make a decision across the board for long term. It's not just a quick knee-jerk thing.
Yeah, they're going to be like Floyd Mayweather. We're back. We're making a comeback. We need, but it's a joke. 45 years they've been broadcasting, and to walk away like they did just seemed like the bully who got punched in the face and went home crying to his mother. But anyway, I got an email to read, and by the way, we still read the emails. I know that there was a void where I got a bunch of emails that I responded to personally rather than read them online. Read them on air, live, I should say. So I will do that. So if you take the time, not that, if you want me to respond and not read it on air, just let me know. Otherwise, I will read them on air. But before I get to it, just another incident of performance-enhancing drugs, Sal.
No, come on, really?
Wait till obviously you haven't heard this, but your boy, Billy Joe Saunders, a guy that you fell in love with after his fight with your guy when he destroyed Lemieux.
And I was a big fan of Lemieux.
Yeah, well, Billy Joe Saunders was tested positive for a performance-enhancing drug. Made a comment that, like everyone else, he's doesn't know how it happened. Blah blah blah. Now here's the thing: the BBB of C, for Billy Joe Saunders, he had been tested several times throughout this year, and all of them had come up negative. This time he says it was a mistake. It was out of competition, according to the UK anti-doping agency, the UKAD. But the bottom line is they are not suspending him. They just fined him. So he's able to fight. They also fined him for the other issues that he had, where he was doing some stuff on video, and so who knows what's going on with Billy Joe Saunders. But according to the latest report, he claims that the performance-enhancing drug that tested positive for was from a nasal spray that he used when he had a cold, and they are not going to move forward with it. I guess they believe him. The bottom line is, in today's, and I'm not suggesting Billy Joe Saunders cheats, though, Sal, but in today's world, the worst thing about doing all these tests is that they test and they hold somebody accountable for something that's on the banned list. So if you're able to get something in your system that could help you enhance your performance, so to speak, and it's not on the banned list, well, guess what? It's not illegal yet. Until they catch up with it and find out that it's a performance-enhancing drug, then they put it on the banned list. It almost entices these guys to try to beat the system legally, so to speak. And, I don't know. I know this sounds barbaric, but sometimes I say to myself, why don't they just say, go ahead, screw it, make it all legal. You guys want to endanger yourself, do it. Just as long as everyone has the same opportunity to cheat the same way. I'm convinced that if they legalized steroids in sports, that somebody would come up with another way where they would find a way to cheat to give them even a better chance of winning. I don't think there's ever an end in this. What's your thoughts, Sal?
There's not. The whole minutia of what's going on in society today and how it evolves to devolve. It's a constant, Bill. And, most fighters that I knew in my era, we would take a nasal spray before a fight or training and to clear up our nasal passages because, that nose becomes a good target. And, and who knows? There was some adrenaline in the nasal spray or something else to help the passages at nasal cavities. I don't know, but it is something else. And I'm not surprised if Billy Joe Saunders, he looked pretty damn big last time he fought, and you question yourself when you see these big fighters. What might they be doing? And he could also have maybe visited Canelo in Mexico, have a burger with him, and it could be anything. But who knows? I think where you were hitting on the topic, hey, will there be a draw if people say, hey, we're gonna let the cat out of the bag and go do what you want to do with using anabolic steroids or so, and if you're gonna wreck your body, your liver, your heart, you're damaging this, that, and everything else, and so be it. But they're going to have also a program or division that is non-PED, performance-enhancing drugs, because there are those purists out there that still believe in, hey, I'm going to use what God gave me and enhance it the best way I can legally by working out, training, stressing the body, and resting the body. That's about it.
Here's the thing. In the heyday, in the beginning of the performance-enhancing drug eras, and they had the big lawsuit, a guy by the name of Victor Conte was the one at the center of it all. This guy was the master chemist, if you will. And, they tied it all back to him, the athletes and everything else, with the big scandal and what have you. Fast forward it to current day sports, and what sport is Victor Conte in right now? Boxing. Victor Conte is the spokesperson. He's like the middleman. Basically, boxers hire this guy to make sure that they, don't do anything wrong. No, let's be real. Victor Conte knows how to beat the test. He knows how to beat the system. That's why they're hiring Victor Conte. Come on. Give me a break. Anybody thinks anything different? I don't know. Let's.
Wait, I was going to say, but here's the other side. Yeah, and they know how to sometimes counterpunch or counter it. They come up with programs to either mask it, to clean it, to just get it out of your system.
Of course,
a drug test.
Of course they do.
It's an ebb and flow. It's crazy.
That's exactly what. Listen, like I said, they know what to take, how long it leaves the system. The whole thing with Canelo, he was on something to help him be able to work out better. It wasn't going to be in his system for the fight, but it gave him a head start with preparing his body. That's why he did it, and he claims the tainted beef. Come on. Whether I'm not saying he did it for the second, for the rematch, but the tentative, the first scheduled rematch. But they also know which ones that aren't on the list.
Yes,
so
they do.
if you take a substance that's not on the banned list, then it's not illegal yet. Then they realize when it catches up, oh, guess what? This makes you, hit like a mule. We better put this on the list. Then all of a sudden it's illegal. Then comes the issue of when the testing comes was it still in the system when it was legal or not? That's already happened before.
It's crazy.
But anyway, let's read this email. This is from my man Jonathan. From the UK, he says, "Hey, Billy C, I enjoyed your post-fight breakdown of Joshua Povetkin, but for me, the reaction from not just your show, but also the boxing, I'm not going to mention that, some other shows, I don't compare our show. Listen, you know what bothers me? When people compare this show to a podcast, or to, yes, we have a podcast, or in this case, to a YouTube show. Listen, we're not a YouTube show. We're not a podcast show. Are we available on YouTube? Yes. Are we available via podcast? Yes. But this is a TV and radio show. We're on television networks. We're on radio stations. That's what separates us. So please, don't compare us to a couple of idiots that have a laptop and broadcast. And if they have bigger numbers than us on YouTube or podcasts, I don't really care. It doesn't matter. I'm not doing it for numbers. Trust me. If I was, I wouldn't be doing it. Anyway, several articles around American media have me confused. After Deontay Wilder defeated Luis Ortiz, the victory was compared to Joshua's win over Klitschko, and Wilder had been given a lot of credit for his win. Whilst Deontay fought well against an awkward southpaw, I don't consider Ortiz a better fighter than Povetkin. Although in the U.S. it seems a lot of people seem to consider Ortiz a far better fighter than Povetkin. Can you and Sal explain why this is the American view? Just to clarify, why I see Joshua's win over Povetkin at least as good as Wilder's win over Ortiz, let me compare the fighters. First, I would like to compare records between Povetkin and Ortiz. Ortiz had over 300 amateur fights, but is not an Olympian. Has never won a title in the amateurs. Povetkin is in a 2004 Olympic champion, 2003 champion, 2002 European champion. Povetkin's amateur record is not only better than Ortiz, it's better than Joshua's and Klitschko's. Luis Ortiz's professional record is 29-1. Povetkin is 34-2 now with his loss against Joshua. On the face of it, it looks similar with Ortiz because having a better knockout ratio and only losses coming from world title fights. However, there's one significant difference. Not counting the world title fights, Luis Ortiz has fought one top 15 opponent in Bryant Jennings, a world title challenger who knocked out Klitschko, who he knocked out whilst Klitschko didn't. Povetkin has fought four top 15 opponents, Takam, Wak, Duhaupas, and Shigaev, all world title challengers. Shigaev was a world titleist, by the way. Let's see, I lost my spot. He says it's also worth noting that he knocked out Duhaupas quicker than Wilder and Takam quicker than AJ. In terms of age, they're both 39 and born in the same year. They both have a tarnished past, Ortiz being stripped of the regular WBA title for testing positive. It was the interim, by the way, for steroids in 2014. Povetkin testing positive in 2016. He was stripped of the regular WBA drug test, clear cut. Ortiz, he goes on to say there are two more great performances. I fail to understand why Wilder gets so much credit for his performance against Ortiz, but Joshua's getting criticism for his fight against Povetkin. He wants our thoughts on this. First of all, thanks for the email, Jonathan. First of all, let me say this. Luis Ortiz was a fighter that I got to call some of his early fights when he first came to the U.S., and I wasn't impressed. I was impressed with him as he was making the rise to the top because he demonstrated at times that he had some talent inside the ring. So with that said, I do give Deontay Wilder credit for beating him. I think he was the only credible opponent that Deontay Wilder has beat, okay? Forget his age and all these other things that Jonathan brings up. I definitely still give Deontay Wilder credit for beating Ortiz. Now, when I look at Alexander Povetkin, I agree with Jonathan that Povetkin is just as good, and you could make a strong case that he's better than Luis Ortiz. The problem with Povetkin is he's had a checkered past as well and hasn't fought much in the U.S., although he has fought some top-notch opponents. Listen, when the smoke clears, there's no question in my mind who the better heavyweight is when we're talking about Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder. It's clearly Anthony Joshua, and I base that not only on skill set, which he possesses, but I base it also on his resume of his opponents. They're clearly better than Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder has an equalizer. He's got a freakish punching power. And freakish punching power can equalize anyone when you step into the ring. I don't care how talented you are as a boxer. If you're not able to withstand or avoid a freak punching power fighter, chances are you're going to get rocked and go down. With that said, my money is still on Anthony Joshua when and if they ever fight. But great email from Jonathan. I think he makes some great points. Sal, what's your thoughts?
No, he makes some great points. And, yeah, between Ortiz and Povetkin, I think they're both credible. They're both notable. And like I said, we here in the U.S., we have Ortiz more available for us to see and be previewed to the American audience than Povetkin has been. They're both good fighters. They both were good opponents. And, I definitely agree. It was a good email, and I just wanted to compliment on that assessment. Very good, and that's how we arrive at it. But I will tell you this, Bill. You know me. I'm still telling you. Deontay Wilder.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, whatever. Deontay Wilder's going to have his hands full when and if he fights Tyson Fury. That fight, we announced it a couple of weeks ago that it was taking place in Los Angeles at the Staples Center, and it was officially announced that it will be taking place at the Staples Center. So that's where the fight. It is on Showtime's pay-per-view. It is scheduled for Saturday, December 1st. I have not heard one thing about the money split for this fight. It seems strange, especially when Team Joshua offered Deontay Wilder $15 million to fight him in April and another $5 million to fight whoever he wanted now in the fall of this year, and he turned it down. This coming from a fighter who never made $2.5 million. His fight against Luis Ortiz, he did not make $2.5 million. Dax told us that he's heard rumor that he's making $3 million to fight Fury, and Fury's making $2.5. I don't know if that's true, but let's just say that Deontay Wilder's making $5 million, and let's just say, for argument's sake, Tyson Fury's making $5 million. Both of these fighters could have fought Anthony Joshua and made 3 times as much, and they didn't. What does that tell you? What does that tell you, Sal, that a guy like your boy Deontay Wilder, who's got 40 wins and his most payday he's ever made, he's a guy that pounds his chest and tells us he's the best. He's a guy that tells us everybody's scared of him. He's a guy that says that nobody wants to fight him, but yet he found 40 cupcakes that he could beat. He got 39 knockouts, and he's accepting arguably, let's just say, double his biggest purse against Luis Ortiz, and he's going to take that when he could have gotten 3 times the amount to fight Anthony Joshua. What's your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts here. I think what we have to do really is chart out the same time frame that they may eventually face each other and see what would have happened. You and I were right on the same page when we said, hey, take the $15 million, have the showdown. There's going to be a rematch clause in there. And if you win, you're going to be ready for a mega payday fight and a rematch. If you lose, you're still going to get paid another fight, another big person rematch, because you're going to be that much more known and gain some respect and fans. So, whether he made $15 million and then $20 million or $25 million afterwards, we're looking at maybe $40 million over the course of a year and a half, 2 fights. Now, he's going to get paid. I think maybe with Fury, maybe I guess at $5 million, but if they're saying 3, still his largest purse. And, the next fight, if it does happen to be Anthony Joshua, and you take the $5 million, would it be a fight that's going to be equal up to pay him $35 million? No, I don't think so. So, yeah, I think the best, best earning power in dollars would have been for him to take the short money of what he considered short money at $15 million and wait for the rematch to maximize his income over 2 fights or a year and a half, 2 years. Now we're going to have to see what he does in the same time frame with this fight and a potential showdown.
Sal, please. It's all BS, all right? It's BS. The truth of the matter is we call it prize fighting. We call it prize fighting because these guys risk what they do for money. They train their asses off so that they can make money. You show me a guy who fights because he likes it and doesn't care about money, and I'm going to show you a nut. I'm going to show you somebody that deserves to be in an institution because you're doing all of this. You're making the sacrifices, etc., etc. You're putting the burden on your body. You're putting yourself mentally and physically through what you have to do to be a professional fighter, and you do it for the money. Okay? Deontay Wilder, people can say what they want, but the bottom line is, and his team was positioning him to create value, okay, so that he could make big money. So what do? They give the guy a steady diet of cupcakes. He ends up with 35 fights against bums, okay, and you can make an argument that he fought a couple of good fighters. Artur Spitska was a ranked fighter. I give him credit for that. I give him credit for Ortiz, and really that's it. I guess we have to give him credit for the first Bermane-Stavern fight before we realized Stavern was a bum. So, I mean, if you give him credit for 3 wins, but the point is, if you look at it from a business perspective, that they invested the time and money in Deontay Wilder, and it was all about to come to fruition. What he had to do was take that money to fight Anthony Joshua. He was in a win-win situation. Just as you said, he would have gotten a rematch clause. He could have parlayed 2 fights, even if he lost, into more money than he would know what to do with, and he didn't. So now you wave that, you screen that off, and you say to yourself, and what's he doing? Why is he doing this? Why is he not taking a fight? Well, somebody could say to me, well, Billy C., don't you know that he's trying to create more value because he wants a 50-50 split with Anthony Joshua? Okay, I'll pretend I didn't know that already, but I'll pretend I didn't figure that one out, okay? And I'll say, okay, you know what, Mr. John Doe? You're right. You enlightened me. He's trying to build value for himself. But then I'm going to say, what about the risk? What about the risk that Deontay Wilder gets tangled up and Tyson Fury can somehow beat this guy in a boring fashion, the way he beats top fighters in boring fashions and wins? Now what happens? Does a fight with Anthony Joshua still take place? Yeah, I'm sure it could. I'm sure the demand would still be there. But for how much money? How much money? If prize fighting is about the money, Sal, then Deontay Wilder made a critical mistake. He's not fighting Tyson Fury and making the same money that he would have against Anthony Joshua, because if he was, I'd be all supportive of the fight. But he's not. Now I still ask, why? Why are you taking this risk? When you add that up, you're still not equaling. His whole career hasn't equaled what he could make against Anthony Joshua in one fight. And when you throw in the deal that Eddie Hearn offered him, he would be making $20 million for 2 fights in less than a year's span. and he's never going to make that kind of money. And he could have picked anybody he wanted. He could have fought Sal Rocky Cenicola in the fall and still made $5 million. Instead, he's fighting Tyson Fury. I'm sorry, something smells. It doesn't seem right. And I know one thing for sure, Sal. Deontay Wilder is an idiot. He's listening to people around him that are taking advantage of him, and he is not making a smart move. But then again, nobody ever said Deontay Wilder's a smart cat.
Well, you know what my thoughts on this, and I think it's a shame. You have a domestic world heavyweight champion in our backyard, and he's virtually unknown by a lot of fans or a lot of people in the United States. Here's a guy, he's undefeated, and he's a knockout artist. I don't care what level his opponents are, and you know people like to see that. And he should have been and could have been promoted to where he is a household name. They could have signed him to mega endorsements. And to see, here he is now, hopefully where he's going to remain for a little while at the peak of his career. They've got to maximize what years are left, because guess what? We know there are no guarantees in boxing. So that's why I thought it was a little short-sighted that didn't take the 2-fight deal or whatever it might have been with Anthony Joshua for the $15 million that was originally offered. And we'd be looking at the showdown right now, and they'd already be licking their chops for a rematch and see what that could drum up. And Bill, and this is just what infuriates me a little bit more, because I've been touting for years. You hit it on the head. This is called prize fighting. They should make any mega fight like this for the World Championship. They should make it a 60-40 split across the board, no matter what, ifs, ands, and buts. That'll give the fighters enough to fight for. And, it's a fair deal. The winner of the fight deserves to make more money. And if he gets a 60 out of a 10 million, he gets 6 million. And the loser gets 4 million. Hey, that's still fair. But you're going to get a 60-40 split for any title fight. I like it.
I mean, the truth is, it's for, Anthony Joshua. The reason why that fight is so important, and I'm talking about the Anthony, and for all my radio affiliates and television affiliates, we're not taking a break here. I apologize. I went over my time because Sal wouldn't shut up. But, the truth of the matter is that, I want to see the fight.
Yeah,
but too. Anthony Joshua needs to fight Deontay Wilder, because the sad truth is there's really no one else right now. There are some young, Daniel Dubois is one that comes to mind, that's on the rise, but he's not ready yet. So there are some fights for Anthony Joshua should he stick around, but not right away. So Deontay Wilder is a perfect opponent for him. The issue here is Deontay Wilder surrounded himself with the wrong team. I do give Deontay Wilder credit for being loyal. That's something that does not happen too often today, especially in the sports world. And Deontay has stayed loyal to his team, even though they're robbing him blind, even though they're not doing the right thing for Deontay. Deontay still stays with them. Deontay Wilder has been forced to promote himself, doing what he does in his WWE fashion. The truth is this. One night before he fought at the Barclays Center, they were walking around the streets of Brooklyn asking people who Deontay Wilder was. Now, Deontay Wilder's name was on the marquee right out front of Barclays Center where they were conducting these, walk-by interviews, people just walking by. And most of the people, I think one out of a dozen or so people that they stopped on the street and filmed it, knew who Deontay Wilder was. Everyone else never heard of him. His name was right there on the marquee, and they still didn't hear of him. A couple of people thought he was a basketball player. The truth here is that we don't know who Deontay Wilder is. The only things that we hear about Deontay Wilder is when he says I'm going to kill somebody in the ring, and that's not a good thing. Mike Tyson said crazy stuff too, but Mike Tyson was exciting. Mike Tyson was a fighter, and I'm not saying it was okay for him to say that. Don't twist it around. but he did fight whoever was in front of him. Be as it may, the heavyweight division wasn't that great at that time. But today, we do have some dance partners. You know, Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua could have created a nice little trilogy or at least a two-fight thing where they could have both made a lot of money and they both would have become globally recognized. Anthony Joshua is already globally recognized. He doesn't need Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder against Tyson Fury, the only thing they got going is that the fact that some people still regard Tyson Fury as the linear champion because he didn't lose his title inside the ring. I think that the way the title has been split up as much as it has, that title, that lineage, is hard to keep track of. And it's hard to give a guy like Tyson Fury credit when, let's be fair, no one liked Tyson Fury more than me. But who did he beat besides Klitschko? I mean, let's be real here, Sal. Who did Tyson Fury beat besides Vladimir Klitschko? You can make an argument. I go back to that fight against Steve USS Cunningham where I watched Tyson Fury get rocked by an uppercut. And I'm saying to myself, there is no way that Tyson Fury is going to be able to withstand a solid punch from Deontay Wilder. But with that said, Deontay Wilder doesn't have the skill set. Tyson Fury could tie him up. Who knows? It is an interesting fight, Sal.
It is an interesting fight, and definitely has my curiosity up. And like I said, it's the pathway to a showdown, and we gotta have to accept it and live it and wait it out. But yeah, it's definitely. So it is interesting, and you bring up some great points with that whole this depiction of what it was about, and I agree with you, Bill. I agree with you big time.
It's just very nerve-wracking, Sal.
Because, it's very nerve-wracking.
Yeah, well, it's sad because, you know, it's the same thing that's going on with other aspects of our country right now. You know, it used to be basically in a court of law, you were innocent until proven guilty. If I said that Sal robbed my car, I had to prove that Sal robbed my car. And if I was able to prove it, Sal would go to jail. Now, if I say Sal robbed my car, Sal has to prove he didn't rob my car. And the burden of proof falls on the guy that's being accused, where it's supposed to be the other way around. Well, it's the same thing in the sporting world, especially in our sport, in boxing. Deontay Wilder says he's great and is not being forced to prove it. You know, Anthony Joshua makes an offer. They say never got there. This one says the contract wasn't there. No date, no this, no that. I mean, come on. It's all propaganda. It's all BS. This has become boxing has become sad. And, you know, what's even sadder is that we have the talent. You know, there was a time in boxing, you know, I can't believe people refer to the 90s as a good era, too, because it wasn't. Let's be real. It was terrible. Calzaghe, anybody that says Joe Calzaghe was a great fighter, come on, man. Come on. He ducked more fighters than a pond with friggin' mallards in it. I mean, come on. This guy, whatever, okay? And the truth of the matter is that, you know, in order for the sport of boxing to be the way it was, it's never going to be the exact way it was. But what way it could be is that fighters fight other fighters on their way up, that the fans don't crucify a fighter if he has a loss, that networks and sanctioning bodies don't hold it against a fighter if he has a loss or 2 or 5. And if he works his way up the ladder, that he should still get his opportunities. And you know what will happen, boys and girls? If you do it that way and fighters actually have to fight, when you finally get world championship fights, and I'm not even suggesting get rid of the 49,000 sanctioning bodies, but what you would end up having is when a fighter fights for a world title, you will be treated with 2 fighters in that ring that are talented fighters. That's something that's not happening today. We may have one talented fighter in the ring against a guy that's outclassed. And then that fighter that's talented pounds on his chest and says he's the best. You're only the best if you beat other quality fighters. Sal, I mean, there's no other way that you can look at it. I mean, I don't get it. I don't understand how I'll tell you, the reason why young fans put up with this crap is because they all got trophies in Little League. They all got participation trophies. They don't know what competition is all about, and it's sad what's happening.
Well, it is in that sense, and I agree with you. And that's the old ways of how we saw fighters rise and climb the ladder of the rankings and earning that title fight and things like that. It's a different game today. That's it. And it's also different promoting. I mean, like I said it many times, Deontay Wilder should be a household name. And, and I often wonder, I said, well, he's in New York. And New York, I don't think the New Yorkers have claimed him as their own because he's really from Tennessee. Maybe if he stayed in Tennessee, all the people from Tennessee would have been touting and praising and rooting, which they still do. But, I mean, it would have been more of a focus on, hey, we got this local hero here from Tennessee.
Who's from Tennessee?
No, where's Deontay Wilder from?
Alabama.
That's what I meant, Alabama. I got my forget. I'm sorry. He's from Alabama. So, you know what? Had he stayed in Alabama, would everybody around him from Alabama have become his mouthpiece, become his thing? They still do. They still claim him as they should. But, here he is in New York. And you don't hear anything from his camp. You don't hear anything from New Yorkers, and it's a shame because, like I said, this guy should be a household name.
He's a clown, though. Hey,
I know.
Speaking of Alabama, I'm a big I'm a big Crimson Tide fan,
you are.
Again, I can't help it. Watching the game yesterday, they're spanking the Raging Cajuns, and which they should have. And, you got to love Nick Saban. They stick a mic in front of him. It's 49-0 at halftime. And he says, how do you think your team's doing? You would think that he says, we're clicking on all cylinders. Everything's going right. We missed the tackle. Special teams isn't doing it. I missed that field goal. We got a lot of things to work on. A lot of things to work on at the half. I would say. It's like, I mean, I guess you got to keep that attitude, Sal. And so do fighters. If they're blowing by everybody and they're winning these fights, they can't become complacent and think that they don't have to work on anything anymore because then mediocrity kicks in. And the sad truth is in the sport of boxing, what used to happen is you started off, you ended up at a gym, you started boxing, you got into the amateurs, you won some titles in the amateurs or did well in the amateurs, maybe you didn't even win titles. You decide to to become a professional fighter. You fought as a pro, you worked yourself up from turning pro to a young fighter that's considered a prospect. Then from a prospect, you work your way into a contender, and then once you're a contender, you work your way into a world title shot, and ultimately you become a world champion. And then when your career was over, you stayed in the sport. You became a trainer. You became a gym owner. You became a promoter, and that's what boxing does not have today. Those types of people that started out walking into a gym as a kid, becoming an amateur, becoming a prospect, becoming a contender, becoming a champion, or even just getting a shot at becoming a champion, they went back to the sport, and they are considered boxing people. We don't have enough of boxing people involved in the sport of boxing. It sounds ridiculous, but it's true. It's the only sport that's out there that all it takes is a checkbook with money in it, and you can become a fighter. I've used this analogy, or a promoter, or anything. I've used this analogy many times. I have never trained. I've been involved in the boxing business for 37 years. I was a manager. I was an advisor. I was a promoter, gym owner, do this show. I'm a historian. I've written a book. I've done all these things in the sport of boxing, but the one thing I've never done is I've never been a trainer. I boxed, of course. I've never been a trainer. But the sad reality, Sal, is I could walk into a commission at the night of a fight and say, hey, I'm training Sal Rocky Cenicola, and they say, give me $25, and I'm the chief second for that fight. Never have trained a fighter in my life, and that's the truth. And that's a problem because we got a lot of rah-rah men out there that call themselves trainers, and they're not. And these are the guys that are teaching these same kids that walk into the gym. These are the guys that are so-called teaching or cheering on these same fighters that somehow get maneuvered to a position like a Deontay Wilder. I'm not suggesting he obviously he was a bronze medal winner and everything else, but same type of a thing. So, yeah, boxing is lacking some important components that we need, and it's not just about guys fighting other top guys. It starts at the bottom, Sal.
No, it doesn't. It starts at the bottom, and you know, I remember when I was trained by several world-class, world-known trainers, and you know, when I thanked them, when the light bulb went off, and I felt I learned something, and it was mine to own, and it was fluid, it was part of my whole repertoire and everything else. Man, I thanked them. I said, "That's great." You know, I told you this before. They would always say, "Don't thank me. Just pass it on to another fighter one day." That's what they all said because they were part of the fight game. They were what made the fight game, and that's the old school. They were fighters. They became trainers. They became other people, as you were suggesting. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people in the fight game today, when they either retire or do something, maybe the money's not there for them to become trainers, or maybe it's just not there now, or whatever it is. But you could tell when there's people from the fight game in the fight game and when there is not. And that's why, one of the reasons why I love even listening to some of the ring announcers from the UK, like I did last night with the Smith and Groves fight. I love when I heard the term from one of the guys, I know getting off topic, he said, and there you see him twisting his toes into the canvas to get and that's what you do. That's what you do to get the leverage, to get the fight, to get that punch delivered in the right hand. You're not going to hear one of these Hollywood fame guys that are on the HBO or Showtime or whatever else say, "Oh yes, he's twisting his toes into the canvas."
You get that idiot Ronaldo saying he's hitting that body like it's a pinata. I mean, give me like candy's going to come out of it. He thinks he's funny. I can't stand the guy. I don't listen to those broadcasts because of him. They could put a mime on as the lead character, and I'd listen more than that piece of garbage, Ronaldo. And again, I don't care that he's battling depression. I don't care. We're all a little depressed. But speaking of depression, I wanted to get into just a little before we got to go already here. But Adonis Stevenson, remember him, Sal?
I remember him. Yeah, I do remember him.
He's supposed to be, a world light heavyweight champion. This is a guy that has systematically dodged his mandatory challenger for at least 4 years now. Everybody wonders how he gets away. How does the WBC let him get away with it? Well, they finally are curbing Adonis Stevenson, and he is set to fight Godzarik, who's Alexander Godzarik, who's a top a light heavyweight in the world, 15-0 with 12 knockouts. Stevenson is 29-1-1. It's taking place December 1st. Ironically enough, you know what they're calling this fight card?
No.
Mandatory. Here's a guy in Stevenson who has ducked all the best fights that could have possibly been made, and he's finally against the wall and has to fight a real fight. And I don't think he's getting out of this one unscathed. The title will change hands on December 1st for sure. But ironically, they call this fight mandatory. How much of a joke is that? And if Stevenson doesn't realize it's a joke on him, I don't know. Well, what's your thoughts?
Well, you just said it right there. And Stevenson should understand that this is exactly what it is. It's a mandatory. You got to rise to the occasion. You got to show everybody what you really have. And good, bad, or indifferent, you're going to be in a fight. And it's the way it should be, Bill. It's a mandatory. I like that. It's great.
I know they're naming the card mandatory.
I know, mandatory. It's funny. There's the inside humor for people like us that we know what it's hinting, what it's suggesting, and what it's saying underneath the story of itself. Wait, are we talking about the story of the game, of the fight? I'm sorry.
Yeah. That I guess that might have been, maybe that was the nail in HBO's coffin when Max Kellerman kept saying that over and over and over.
The story of the fight.
And
he's winning the story of the fight.
And then as it turned out, the story really was HBO's. They're quitting on their stool. You know, they're quitting on their stool. But in any event, well, listen. What, Sal? What? Yeah. Come on, I got time restraints.
You saw my hand go over there. Thank you. Listen, I just want to recap a little feedback I've gotten about the Canelo Alvarez Triple G fight. I've had, we talk boxing in my restaurant all the time, and you've got some old fight fans, and even last night, this table comes in. And they come in all the time, and they want the puttanesca sauce. They're a great group of people. Love them. And they know they're fighting, too. They know their fight game. And, we were talking about the Canelo Alvarez Triple G fight. And lo and behold, pretty much they agreed with you and I saw the same fight. They thought that Triple G actually won this fight even more convincingly, or hurt Canelo Alvarez even more so than he did the last time, which he did win. And that's how I saw the fight. And I still felt that Triple G won the fight. Now, I had felt he won both fights. Then I stopped, on my way home once in a while because it's on the way. And it's a great little place. And Billy C, next time you come down here, I'm taking you over to Benny's Red Barn. They've got the Tree Bar there. And I usually stop for just a beer. I have one beer and one Coca-Cola, and I go home. And I was talking to some of the younger people there that were fight fans. And they all saw the other fight that we talk about. They all saw Canelo Alvarez winning the fight. They thought Canelo Alvarez won the first fight. So it just so happens to be, it amazes me how, different generations or different eyes or different people see different fights and different results. It's crazy.
No, what's crazy is, and no offense to the younger people, but it's true, they believe anything they hear. They are listening to the commentators of the fight. Listen, I believe that Triple G won the first fight hands down. I believe that fight was borderline robbery. It was still close. Triple G took his foot off the gas in the latter part of that fight. But I thought he won that fight. The second fight, I did have Triple G winning 115-113. But it was not a robbery. Those first several rounds were extremely close. And we knew, Sal, we talked about this multiple times before the first bell sounded, that there was no way that Triple G was going to win the fight unless he knocked out Canelo. And he still failed to put his foot on the gas. It's nobody's fault in both of those losses, or the first draw and the second fight being a loss. Then Triple G, it was his own fault. He failed to take it to Canelo. Canelo, on the other hand, I give him credit, and a lot of people feel he won the fight because he was the aggressor in the second fight. I still don't think he won, but he fought a different fight. As a matter of fact, Abel Sanchez's mental work on saying that Canelo ran in the first fight and he didn't live up to the Mexican heritage, etc., 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 he ended up making Canelo fight the fight that he wanted for Triple G. It was Triple G who failed to put the pedal to his metal. Now, whether he just didn't have the gas left in the tank because of his age, whether he was looking to counter, I don't know. But the bottom line is that Canelo fought a good fight. I still think Triple G won. But Canelo's body work kept Triple G away from him. Triple G does not like to get hit by the body. Listen, we can spin that any way you want, but at the end of the day, in boxing, the beauty of this sport is that you could take matters in your own hand. You just go balls out and knock your opponent out. That's the only way to have a non-disputable win, like George Grove's loss last night to Callum Smith. people actually had this fight close. There was a couple of one judge in particular, I believe, had the fight even at the time of the stoppage.
Well, I had it by 1 point.
And the truth of the matter is that I looked at that fight. I wasn't scoring it, but as just watching the fight, I'm sitting here saying that Groves looked scared to death for the whole fight. That Callum Smith was a guy that looked like he was in control of that fight. I was not scoring it, but it is what it is. It looked like Callum Smith wanted that fight more than George Groves. Now, the reason why George Groves was tentative, maybe his shoulder wasn't healed, maybe he was fighting too cautious, or maybe he just aged. I don't know. But Callum Smith won the fight hands down. And if you're going to beat an opponent, you got to beat him hands down. Now I'm over our time. Listen, boys and girls, make sure you tune in next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, I'll leave you with this. Ciao, baby.